Okay, hello everyone. I can just see some last minute people joining, but I'm going to kick off and go into some of the housekeeping for today's breakout session so we can get straight on to the content of today's session. So you will be used to seeing this by now, but just once again, a big thank you to all of our sponsors for the International Rare Disease Showcase. We wouldn't be able to put on an event like this without their support, so a huge thank you to all of them. So without further ado, that's everything from me, and I'd love to pass over to Sondra Butterworth, who is the founder of Rare Qual. I always never know whether to say quality of life or qual.
Yeah,
Rare
rare
Qual.
qual is fine.
And she's going to be giving a presentation entitled "All the Tricks of the Trade: Multi-Method Research for Rare Diseases." So over to you, Sondra.
Thank you very much. I could see some friendly faces there, so that's good. Okay, so I'm Sondra Butterworth, as you know, and I'm the founder of Rare Qual, or Rare Quality of Life. And I have a passion for mixed methods, as in different types of research. Now, what I want to be able to do for this session is make it interactive. So please don't be scared. And please talk to me if you have anything to say. But one of the things I wanted to start with is to consider mixed methods. So what I want you to do is just think generally around research. And if you can, in the chat box, just put in, what do you think of when you say research, when you think about research is blank. Okay, and what I want to do, and we're going to have a couple of breakout sessions, and what I want to do then is to read the sort of things that people are saying about what they think research is. So I hope that's okay if you can do that. And then I'll pick that up later and we'll feed that back. I was saying to Philippa, I might make a word cloud or something out of it and post it on social media just to see what people are thinking around research, particularly related to rare diseases. Okay, so we have a little poll for us, and what I want you to do is to rate what you consider to be your knowledge of mixed methods research. So do you feel that your knowledge is excellent, very good, good, fair, poor, or non-existent? Mine was non-existent before I did my study. I have to say I'd never even heard of mixed methods. Okay, so let's see. The poll is on screen. Thank you very much, Philippa. And if you don't mind, if you could just indicate, oh, there's a poll there. Oh, it's coming through, it's coming up. I love this poll. We'll have to do this, Beth. This is brilliant. Okay. Is that everybody, do we think? So we've got poor and fair, which is interesting. And I'll tie that in with what you guys have said during the during the chat, in the chat box. Okay. So let's see if I can go next. Right. So if we're thinking about different types of research, I'm just giving you some background to mixed methods research. So you have one type of research which is quantitative. So that's where you've got lots of statistics, analysis. It's fairly objective. So it's not about the patient's opinion. It's about, you know, clinical trials are run on this type of measure. So quantitative, facts and figures, can we make predictions, etc., etc. And they are designed so that you can have measurable outcomes, which absolutely is important in clinical practice, or if you're trying to get a cure for a condition or improve treatment. So you need to have that. The limitations of a clinical trial or a quantitative research approach is that the patient's not necessarily involved, traditionally not necessarily involved. I've been asked to be part of a collaboration of a European network of researchers who are looking at rare diseases, but they're looking at the scientific cells in a test tube, skin samples, etc. And one of the research I was talking to, a very lovely Italian lady, and she was saying that she doesn't know how to approach it from a person-centered approach. She said she deals with tissue samples. She deals with test tubes. So in terms of the patient's experience and waiting for the results of what she's done, she's never had to consider that before. So now they're designing this research, and what has been apparent now is that they have to include the patient's perspective. So they've had to slightly redesign the way that they're doing things, and they've included words like person-centered approaches to clinical research. But we had this very long, very interesting conversation. They've put it in the bit, but they don't know what it is. So they've asked us to come on board so that we can be partners in the study to bring that sort of psychosocial aspect to their clinical trial study, which I thought was, yes, hallelujah, it's happening. Okay, so other types of research, if you had like two ends of one spectrum, you have qualitative and quantitative. Okay, so this is the qualitative. And qualitative research, if you can think of it's not necessarily about facts and figures and being able to predict and so on. It's about the depth. So if you wanted to have a clinical trial, for example, or a drug therapy or whatever, you've got the statistics to say the pain is reduced. So that's the quantitative aspect of that study. Yeah, fine. But the qualitative aspect is more subjective. So it's about the patient or the person's feelings about the reduction in pain. So you've got the pain reduced and then end of study, great, it's worked. But now in terms of the subjective perspective of the patient, it's finding out the wider determinants or the wider impact of that trial, study, drug therapy, or whatever. So it can be semi-structured rather than structured, like the clinical trial. And then they very often want to have a clear outcome there. But with qualitative research, you don't always know the outcome before you start. Or you can't always say, the outcome will be that everyone's going to say, yes, it's great, fabulous. You can't, because otherwise you're controlling the patient's responses. Okay, so that's the next one. Oops, the thing's going a bit thingy. Right, just move on to the next one. So if you have a combination then, like this, can you all see moving? Took me ages to do this, ages. So a combination of research. So you've got mixed methods, and this is my passion, because I feel that if you have just one type of research, it can be one-dimensional almost. Okay, and what people don't always realize is that there are different types of research. Okay, so I'm going to read what you guys have put in the chat box later about research in a sec. So you've got a combination. You can have interviews, you can have surveys, clinical trials, which we've already mentioned, but also you can have advocates and you can have people telling their stories. Yeah, so that's a big thing, and that has to be integrated into clinical trials and the other types of research that we're all familiar with. But the difficulty, I think, for many researchers is that they're not mixed methods researchers. So if you're a mixed methods researcher, you have to be able to see two sides, two approaches, and combine the two often. Another form of research could be just the physical assessment. So you're going in for a checkup, and it's not necessarily a trial, it's just to see maybe, has this improved, has this changed? And then finally, the artistic expression. So I know one of my colleagues, Shanley, she does artistry. So she draws pain because it helps her to express the pain in a way that the medics would understand as they're doing a pain therapy. So that could be part of the clinical trial in terms of research and how to improve the experience for the patient. So these are different sorts. Okay.